Good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you are and whatever time you're looking at this channel. You are watching Abuti Rams Live, and today it is no different, guys. We're in a conversation with one of the leaders in the country who's really making the waves and who's really, putting his voice out there. And we have a very great person that I want us to look into his entrepreneurship journey, but also look into his stance on the situation that we're having in the country. We have none other but Mr. Herman Mashaba on the couch, sitting down here, talking to us about that. So this is going to be an extended version of our conversations. Normally, we know we do it 30 minutes, but we're going to do it for 1 hour so that we can have more information and hearing him share some wisdom with us as people of this country. Thank you so much for watching. If you are looking at this, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you hit the bell icon so that you get notified, and also share with your friends so that you can watch Abuti Rams Live. Mr. Mashaba, welcome to Abuti Rams Live, sir.
Thank you very much. Great opportunity, great introduction. I'm looking to this full hour engagement.
Thank you so much, sir, and agreeing to such an extensive time. And I know we are taking much of your time and from your family, but I think it is very important for us to talk to you right now because we have an audience in South Africa that is saying that, here's a new voice. Here's a new voice in the politics in the schemes of politics and the bigger things of things. We want to hear this new voice. But before we could even hear about that, there are some people who don't know who Mr. Herman Mashaba is in the country. And that is a reality. Even if we have, 58 million people, there are some people like, but who is this man? But we want to find out from you, say, who do you describe yourself as? Right now, after so many years being on this planet.
It's actually quite unfortunate, more especially the younger generations post 1994. They don't know about people like myself because obviously when this new government came into power, their focus wasn't for the development of a black nation in a proper kind of fashion. So industrialists and entrepreneurs like us, we were totally and completely sidelined. How I survived, I'm really very lucky because I look at black men and women, entrepreneurs during the dark days of our country's history who really used to make things happen.
Sure.
When the National Party said us as black people, we couldn't make it. And obviously, all of a sudden, 1994 came and now the focus was focused on tenderpreneurs. That's why we introduced this term called tenderpreneur in South Africa. A patronage network that destroyed the real entrepreneurs of this country. And without any doubt, I'm sure anyone would know, ANC would not celebrate someone like me.
Definitely, sure.
Because they prefer people who are dependent on the state. Someone who's self-made, someone who's independent. Unfortunately, they've made it clear they don't like clever blacks. Whereas in my case, I love clever blacks.
And you are one of the clever blacks.
Yeah, so obviously I'm a 61-year-old man, started my business career at the age of 22. After abandoning my education at university in 1980, second year of my studies. One morning, the university surrounded by the army, and we were asked to leave. And month or two when we were asked to come back, I decided I'm not going back.
Interesting.
And then I ended up working for 30 months in my life, 2 companies.
Wow.
One for 7 months, Spa Pretoria distribution as a dispatch clerk, and worked for Motani Industries, furniture manufacturing company for 23 months. And during that time, all of a sudden, I'm 22 years old, and I realized, Herman, you're getting old, you're losing time.
At 22, you are getting old.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of, I grew up, my grandfather demanded of me to really be successful in life. And now, all of a sudden, I'm 22, I'm working for someone else. And because I grew up actually thinking and having this ambition of using education to attain my independence. And the National Party made it impossible for me to pursue that route. So I had to look for an alternative. That's when I opted for business. And obviously everything else is history, because in 1982, that's when I got married, I bought a car, then became a commission sales rep, totally independent. And in the process, came across a company in Johannesburg selling hair products. I sold for them for 19 months on a commission basis.
Okay.
And during that 19 months, my goodness, I discovered another golden opportunity. And I said, I'm not going to really make this product for this white businessman. I've got to find a way to make them myself.
Okay.
Black women and men were ready to be pimped. And I said, I'm not going to pay them for someone else. This is the industry that's going to be there forever. So I've got to figure out, how can I make this product? Because I'm not going to be a distributor. I'm not going to, for the rest of my life, be a commission sales rep for other people. I've got to be in charge of my own life. That's how I conceived the idea of Black Like Me in 1984. January 1985, we started producing products in Harangu industrial area, 200 square meter factory. Everything else is history.
Interesting thing about the story, I picked up two things. There's one of a young man at the age of 22 who feels that he's old.
No, getting old and I'm running out of time.
Yeah, running out of time. And that young man at 22, I mean, it's similar to my story as well. I left job, I only worked for 8 months.
Yeah.
And I went into entrepreneurship as well. You don't find such things in our community right now, where a lot of young people at that age saying that, I want to go into business. I don't want to work for somebody. I don't want to, say yes, boss. I want to be independent of thought and of mind and make sure that I accumulate wealth on my own and start something afresh. But I just want to go and work and get a GTI there and, be in mid-rent and just live a normal life. And I call it the average Joe syndrome. You didn't have that. And you mentioned something about dropping out. What type of messaging can you say to young people who feel that the education system is failing them, especially right now, that the education system is not helping them? I'm one of them who felt that when I was doing my BTech, I did my national diploma, and when I was doing my BTech, and I was like, no, this thing is way behind. The syllabus is way behind. When I'm at work, it's different from what I'm being taught. Why am I still continuing with a BTech education? I'm supposed to be doing something better with my time. What is your message to young people post 94 right now that are saying that the education system is failing us in terms of us getting into, being entrepreneurs and developers and creators and innovators?
Well, unfortunately, one of the weapons that ANC has successfully used, and successful in a negative way, was to deprive the black nation of quality education. And this was deliberate, as far as I'm concerned, because, you, as you are aware, I come from a Bantu education background because of my age. Lived already half of my life under the apartheid system. So basically, I went through school throughout under Bantu education. But I look at that Bantu education compared to the current ANC education. Honestly, they're not compared. The Bantu education is way ahead. Way ahead. 80% of public schools in this country, I don't know if you're aware, they are dysfunctional.
True.
And why they are dysfunctional is because of SATU, where the government has given the responsibility of our education, not to the Department of Education, but to SATU. Which is obviously part of government, where they decide who becomes a principal, who teaches where. School inspectors allowed, they do as they please. They sell jobs. For you to really become a principal, you've got to sell your jobs. But sometimes women have to sell their bodies to really get positions. I'm sure South Africans are aware of a report that we are still awaiting from NG to release that report on the jobs for sex or money. And you look at the two ministers of education, both higher education and the other one, basic education. You can see these are the people who have dismally failed the black youth, but they've been rewarded for their failures. How long have they been in education? For more than 10 years. Because I think they are being rewarded. They are delivering, as far as ANC is concerned. They are delivering the failure. Yeah, because I mean, this the engine blade in education environment, no normal human being or leader will let them be there for 6 months. They would have, by my standards, they should have been fired in 6 months' time. First, secondly, you don't have to really allow SAC to really be in charge of education. The education of our children should really be the exclusive responsibility of our government. We need to bring back school inspectors. We need an educational revolution that can teach our kids and not to just really be employees, also be employers. Artisan training.
Sure.
You look at what these guys have done to artisan training in this country. You know, I grew up in an environment, in a village or township. When we went into the townships like Temba, my sister bought a stand there. The Botswana government just provided light in the streets. So if you wanted electricity, you had to get a professional electrician to go and make the application to bring in electricity into your house. And we had real qualified black technicians. I remember in Garangua, when I started Black Like Me, Mr. Masote next door to my factory was a qualified electrician in Garangua, well known in Garangua. We had carpenters, we had bricklayers. And what has happened? Today we've got Alexander Technical College here in Alexander. Go and find out from the head of the school. Yeah. They teach people artisan training without practicals. And I had engagement when I was campaigning there. Twice it breaks your heart where for them it's about just pushing our kids. The principal was telling me that because of lack of practical training, government, unfortunately, is forcing them just to pass our children. So you pass as an electrician or a bricklayer, but you've never really worked in a bricklaying environment. And that's government that's just really pushing the numbers. They are after numbers. And that's why we've turned our nation into a nation of people who are just lifing. You know, when people just really life. Going to most of the townships, if not all of them, right now, to what time is it now? 10:30. Can tell you, people are drunk. We've opened our borders to drug cartels, international drug cartels. They've identified South Africa to really be the headquarters of drug syndicates for the world. Why this is really happening? Because unfortunately drugs are not just really obviously crippling us economically or mentally. They break our families.
Sure.
How many families they've lost their children, or the families have broken down because of these kids who are using nyaupe and other sorts of drugs. Really under the watch of our government. Is this a mistake? No, no, I refuse. I refuse for anyone to really tell me this is a mistake, because once, as a human being, you see a problem, and you don't do anything about it, and then you tell me 26 years later that it's not your intention. No ways. I'm prepared to accept that. I think this failure of the ANC government, it's deliberate, because you must understand the communist system where they were trained. The communist system survives where you oppress people. And the only way you can easily oppress people is to make sure that you get rid of the intelligent people. So you just suppress education and make sure that your people just live. They're scared. Go to Russia. You know, the Russians, remember that system collapsed in 1989 from 1917. The brutality of that system since 1917 up to the collapse in 1989. And it's still continuing today. The Russians are brutalized. Go to China. You know what happened with Mao after the Second World War. People are brutalized. You go to Cuba. You know, I was in Cuba 2 years ago in Havana. You feel pity. You see, these are just human beings just walking. You know.
And these are the countries that are praised right now for, you know, especially from what we call the left, the socialists and the communists, right, which are now speaking about, how they see them liberating people, and I want us to have that type of a conversation later on, because there's people on social media talking about comparing you to Donald Trump, but we'll have the conversation later on. But something that you have mentioned within this conversation, that you spoke about the education system as well and industrialization, is that you as an entrepreneur in the 80s, where you were able to take a product, you were able to build a product. From prototyping to commercialization.
And it's still highly successful, 37 years later.
Amazing enough. We have right now in the country, the Innovation Hub is one of them, those innovation centers, and we have the CSIRs of this world. What is failing about these institutions? Because I can see a lot of entrepreneurs sitting at the Innovation Hub for 3 years being incubated. Incubation is very good, right? But the process of taking these entrepreneurs from being, coming up with the prototypes or helping them with the prototypes, and SABS then approves their products. But there's a break in linkage between the prototyping and commercialization. You were able to do it under apartheid system, when we were then saying black people were then oppressed. But right now we're not oppressed, and young people can take advantage of the opportunities. What is missing? What is the missing link for this entrepreneurs? And some of them, they have these great ideas, beautiful ideas that can really create a lot of employment for other young people in the country. What is the problem?
Well, look, let's really face the truth for what it is, and whether people obviously agree with me. People are most welcome to disagree with me. If you look at the Minister of Trade and Industry for the last 20 odd years or so, right now, who's the Minister of Trade and Industry? Ibrahim Patel, a so-called communist, to run trade and industry. Who was there before him? Rob Davis, a communist. Who was there before him? Alec Erwin. I mean, I cannot understand. There's just no logic where you can have a communist, someone who doesn't believe in business, to be the head of business. Because these guys have come out openly, they don't like business.
Sure.
And then you expect them to run the development of our country. Honestly, it's no brainer that you failed before you started. The Department of Trade and Industry has to be run by someone who believes in business. Because I can tell you, they can come out with an AK-47 to force business to invest in this country. No business has ever invested in a country where they use guns. The only way you get business to invest in your country, you use incentives. You create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive and want to invest in your country. I honestly don't even believe one needs to really go to school to figure this out.
No, definitely.
It's just pure common sense.
Logic.
But now when you have the ministers who are in charge of industry, but they hate in industry, that's really for me weird. Also, really look at our government, run by the tripartite alliance of what we call the ANC. I don't know who are those people. You look at the so-called South African Communist Party and COSATU. Tell me, I mean, honestly, even a standard one child can figure out that there's just no way that these three groups, they can sit and sing for weeks and months out. There's no way that they can come out with a predictable economic policy because the two are against business. I mean, the COSATU is against business. The South African Communist Party is against the business. I don't know about these ones who are called ANC because I've never seen them. So I don't know what they stand for. So that's why look at South Africa for the last few years. Who knows about the economic policies of this country? The reason why everyone, the entire world, has always complained. Businesses here in South Africa, including myself, always really been concerned about the unpredictability of the South African economic policies.
Yeah.
Because these three groups, there's just no way that they can come out with progressive economic policies. When they want to understand about economic policies, where do they go? They go to Cuba. How can you expect to go to Cuba? I mean, you've got to be out of your mind.
Interesting thing about Cuba, where are the Cuban doctors?
Yeah, no, you can imagine, you take our kids, you go and train them to be doctors in Cuba. When Cuba is battling to really have medicine, you go to hospitals in Cuba. And I'm not saying that Cuba doesn't provide
the best quality
but
system,
by their standard.
Sure.
Because its basic medical training is not really sophisticated. Because they don't have sophisticated the machinery.
Yeah,
If you go technology, you go to Havana, you can see it's a glory of its past. Since 1959 or so, when Fidel Castro took over,
yes.
the buildings have never seen paint.
Which are dilapidated, yeah.
So what I'm saying is, how do you, instead of invest, and it's more expensive for us to train our kids in Cuba than actually build more hospitals. If you look at the amount of money that we spend in sending our children to Cuba, how much universities would have built right now?
Interesting.
You know how many of our kids are from privileged positions who are bright enough to study medicine? There's no space for them. And then obviously they don't qualify to go to Cuba because this government would take kids from rural areas, and these poor kids from rural areas, the first year they've got to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
The first year, you waste their first year to learn Spanish. I mean, these are the reality. And we expect development. And then, on the other hand, the focus is not on public service. It's on looting. That's why in just a matter of 26 years, we've become the most corrupt the government in the world. South Africa is the most corrupt country in the world. We are known to be run by criminal syndicates. So can we attract investments? It's impossible. I think, as I say, you don't even have to really be a 10-year-old child to understand that under the current government, forget about foreign direct investments because you are discouraging businesses. Forget about us as South Africans investing in this country.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've taken a decision myself when I was still in business, some 15 or 10, 15 years ago, to say, you know what, my business is in South Africa. I only do what I have to do.
Sure.
Honestly, I only do what I have to do because I'm not prepared any longer to invest in long-term projects in a country that can collapse like Zimbabwe. Yeah. Until South Africans can remove this virus,
sure.
I'm not prepared to really put my money into South Africa on long-term projects. And now, just imagine, for me as a black businessman in my own country that I so dearly love, that I'm scared to invest in long-term.
Imagine.
And that's a reality. So they can bring the AK-47s, they can do whatever. No one is going to force me or any businessman to invest in a country where where the economic policies are not really clear.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying that your proximity to white people and power, or people in power, it's making them to be skeptical about your policy direction as, ActionSA, as a leader of ActionSA. Are their claims and their reasoning and their comments valid? And what do you have to say? Because they are saying that, look, I mean, you started your political career at the Democratic Alliance, which is now, some people call it a demon alliance anyway, or, but they are saying that your proximity to power and white people.
But where's power? Where's power?
And where's the
power in the last 26 years? The power is lying in the Tripartite Alliance. I think I think you can only, fool, I don't know who. I mean, where does power lie in this country? Who's been running this country for the last 26 years?
Administratively, yes, the ANC. But
not in all respects, it's the ANC that's running. So is ANC admitting that they're unable to govern?
Well, maybe from a
No,
certain
okay,
extent.
if they are saying they don't have the power, then basically they are saying we are unable to govern, then it's up to South Africans then to remove them and put in someone who can really govern.
Sure.
Because ANC is now admitting that they are unable to govern. Because honestly, we are not going to ask Verwoerd to come back. Verwoerd died back in 1963. The offenders helped us to kill him. He's not going to come back. So if ANC expect Verwoerd to wake up or to come and rescue us, I think they must have really lost it. I think any country in the world, South Africa is not the only country that has gone through colonialism and oppression.
Sure.
There's no, actually, if you look at the history of the world from the biblical times, there's no nation in the world that never went through a difficult period in their lives. It does not exist. There are obviously countries which were colonized by mainly the British, the French, and so forth. But they received their independence from the early 50s and so forth. There are lots of examples of countries I can give you that have come out of oppression, but they've made the great out of their countries because you had the leadership which was there to actually save their own people, not really serve themselves. Whereas in the ANC, they've made it clear. It's ANC first, South Africa second, or third. I don't know if, but they're unapologetic about ANC first. And once you've got a government like that, you've got problems from the beginning. So you are bound to fail because public service is about putting people first. And then your political party and your own personal stomach second or third, even if it's last. Whereas in ANC's position, it's ANC first. It's to serve ANC. And unfortunately, what they serve, it's so toxic, it's so detrimental to the survival of the future of your grandchildren. Because they're the ones who are going to pay the price. You and I, in fact, I think you guys might really be the generation that's going to pay the price that the Zimbabweans are paid today. How is that country going to recover? Zimbabwe, during the transition period between 1990 and 1994, before the elections, and nearly, as a family, we nearly actually took a decision to move over to Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe at the time was doing very well. We were doing good business in Zimbabwe.
Interesting.
And interestingly for me, God for some reason had another plan for me. I built myself a huge factory right in the township in Mabopane, 10,000 square meter, 6,000 square meter factory. Someone decided on the 17th of November to torch it. And that made me, that's on the eve of elections, and that made me to now focus on rebuilding my factory. Now, as a South African black, I could buy property anywhere. I bought a property that I could immediately occupy in Midrand and started now rebuilding the factory. That process takes years. And now, in the process, 27th of April 1994 came, voted for Nelson Mandela, and became a proud South African for the first time in my life. And I said, my goodness, here we've got a lot going. And then in the process, during Thabo Mbeki's second term, we started seeing human rights abuses coming out of Zimbabwe. And we watched it as South African. The Zimbabweans themselves, obviously, they've got to take the responsibility. Why they've allowed the situation to get to that level. Because right now, they go to a level where, without international intervention, Zimbabweans are going to suffer. They've not really suffered. They will still suffer more because the ZANU-PF will never turn around the situation in Zimbabwe.
No matter how they change the leaders, there's still the political
it can be the evil Mugabe, Mnangagwa, the next one, they'll be the same, that system. It's like here, for anybody to think that ANC will self-correct, I think you must be living in another world. ANC can only get worse. There's no way that ANC will turn around to do the right things. It's not in their nature, it's not in their DNA to do the right things. And it's up to South Africans to stand up and say not in our names, more especially while we still have our democratic structures in place, which are actually, unfortunately, at the moment under attack. They're under threat. And if we don't really watch it, we will end up the Zimbabwean way. And for me, what scares me most is to see South Africa collapse like Zimbabwe, because then I can assure you Zimbabwe will look like a Sunday school picnic, because unfortunately for us as South Africans, we've got nowhere to run to. You go north in Zimbabwe, we've got no chance. We can't go to Zimbabwe, they're starving there. Botswana is not going to allow us. That's one country that you must understand, I think. When it comes to the rule of law, the Botswana doesn't take nonsense from nobody.
True.
You know, so we've got nowhere to go. And then we've got the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic, very cold.
So we've got nowhere to go.
We've got nowhere to go. So we've got to get this country to work. And now you can imagine, once we don't have a functioning economy, unemployment by end of this year will be to over 50%. Our debt levels in a year or two will be over 100%. And going to borrow money from the Mashonistas, because as you are aware, we're junk status. So South Africa does not really have the credibility to go and borrow money from credible financial institutions where they can get good rates. Yes. And now you go and borrow money firstly to go and give it as social grants. And we don't have a choice. You're already trapped in this. Yeah. Secondly, you've got the cadres who are going to steal it. So you're not actually borrowing money to build the infrastructure, the capacity to encourage investments. So you are borrowing money for all the wrong reasons. So things can only get worse. Yes, and that's why for me, anyone who believes that ANC will self-correct must be living in another world.
Some people are saying that your strong views, especially now that you've mentioned something about, not in our name. You're saying this is a very strong view that you're coming with, that not in our name, that we're going to allow the ANC to continue to destroy this nation. Now, a lot of people are then saying your statements come off Donald Trumpish, if you understand what I mean. They are saying that your voice is speaking more like how Donald Trump is saying, that one, make South Africa great, two, put South Africans first. And there are tweets that are going out on those Twitter streets saying that we need to put South Africans first. And there's a growing voice from the members who are part of your members from ActionSA, who are then saying we want to put South Africans first. Interesting enough that you're speaking about Zimbabwe, our very neighbors. I don't know what is the population now, but I don't know, 3 million or 6 million of them in the country. And we interact with these people on a day-to-day basis. Yes, some of them, they ran away from their countries and they're here. Now, your message is coming off as saying that we do not need other Africans in our country.
Not only Africans, Pakistanis, Indians, Czechs, Americans. We don't need anyone who's going to be a liability to South Africa.
Sure.
It's fortunate enough, it's contained in our constitution who qualifies to really get South African citizenship or asylum, whatever.
As well.
It is in our constitution. It's not really something that's really coming from me.
Sure.
For you to really come to South Africa, you've got to come here legally. And when you're here, you must respect the laws of this country. For you to, you can apply. You're most welcome to apply for South African citizenship. It is clear from our constitution and our legal framework who would qualify to really get South African citizenship. You've got to really make sure that I think you bring in a skill, a rare skill that us South Africans don't have. You're coming in to invest. And invest in brick and mortar on a long-term basis. Or otherwise, for us to allow you or to give you asylum, you have to really have a good reason that is believable. And the constitution is clear that if you're taking a chance that you are coming here as an economic migrant, unfortunately, you must be sent back to our country. Is that Donald Trump's approach? I don't. It's a constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It's a legal requirement of any self-respecting country in the world. In fact, this whole notion of what people expect South Africa to do, it's the only country in the world that you go and do your own studies. You can go walk to Botswana. Botswana, you can
our
walk
neighbors,
there,
yeah.
whatever. Can go to Lesotho or Swaziland, including Zimbabwe. You can't go to Zimbabwe without documentation.
Sure.
Can you go to Botswana without documentation?
No, never.
But then, why is South Africa the only country in the world expected to accept people
I don't know,
without
maybe because
documentation?
we're a rainbow nation and we are the Mandela rights, loving everyone.
We must be out of our minds. Unless we like anarchy at the expense of our poor people. You know, you and I don't really suffer the consequences of illegality that's happened as a result of the dysfunctional state of home affairs.
Sure.
Who are the biggest victims of this? Our poor South Africans. My own cousins and whatever, yes. Because what happens, there's economic migrants, they take away their jobs. Firstly, they take away their jobs. They put in a strain on our limited resources, be in schools, in hospitals, and our roads and everything else. Go into any township or village today. How do you tell me someone from Pakistan or Afghanistan or Bangladesh end up in Haramut running a shop? With
Not only
papers.
one, but 5 or more.
Yes, and then
same area.
they don't employ a single South African. They sell counterfeit goods. They sell expired goods, being brought into South Africa in billions. They don't pay taxes on these goods that come into South Africa. That's why they've managed to destroy our normal retail stores. They've destroyed our small businesses in the townships. Because tell me, how do you expect the Mr. Mahlangu, who has been running a supermarket successfully in the township from the 50s, and then all of a sudden the new South Africa comes, he can't compete with the Pakistanis and so forth. Because you see Pakistanis selling the stuff cheap. So basically what you are saying is that the only way South Africans can compete with this criminal syndicate, that means South Africans must also get involved in criminality. Is that what we want? For South Africans to start getting into the crime syndicates, bring in the counterfeit goods, countries where goods are expired, where you can never put them in a shelf in any civilized nation. So these goods are obviously not allowed to be on the shelf. So they know South Africa is a dumping place for such goods, and then they're being sold to poor black people in the townships, living here in Sandton and Kents Bay in Cape Town. Will you buy the counterfeit goods from a property? Who are they subject? Who loses jobs against those foreign nationals in supermarkets? So these criminal syndicates, because obviously the illicit money that they make out of this criminal syndicates, they've got PR agencies that handles this. And they will have some of our own people who will obviously really protect them, be in the media and so forth. I'm sure you've heard of Bell Puttinger.
Yes.
Yeah, no. This whole strategy on calling us xenophobic is it's not an accident. It's not natural. No.
Do you get offended when people call you xenophobic?
No. In fact, I get more determined. I get more resolute.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it makes me realize that, you know what, there's something here, and I think I need South Africans to really wake up to this. The only thing we need to do is that we don't have to really use violence. Let's use our democratic opportunity. Look at the Americans right now. There is last week's the elections in the United States.
Sure.
The United Americans claim to have not been happy with the political environment under Trump for years. And then what did they do? All-time record historic turnout. They did not ban their clinics. They did not ban their schools and destroy their infrastructure. They came out in numbers to vote, and they voted. And the beauty about this, look at these results. 144 million Americans voted.
Sure.
Even the difference between Biden and on the popular vote, only 4 million advantage. So that really shows it's not the question that Americans are divided. I don't believe so.
Sure.
It's actually the power of democracy, because absolute power, unfortunately, corrupts. So right now, Biden, I think, congratulated him. That's wonderful democratic outcome. But at the end of the day, he knows the Americans. He's got almost half of America that are watching him.
So he must be on his toes.
Yeah,
and that's what we want.
And that's why America is such a successful nation for many years. And it's not just really America. You look at all successful nations in the world. They hold politicians accountable. Whereas with us, the country with the highest sustainable unemployment rate, the most unequal society in the world, the most violent people in the world. We have more people being violently killed in this country than anywhere else in the world, even in countries that are at war. We're known as the rape capital of the world. So we've got every 2.5 years, we've got an opportunity to punish the politicians and hold them accountable. So what do? We think, you know what? I'm nobody. I'm not going to vote. And you don't realize that every vote counts.
Yeah. Now, speaking about America, I mean, Americans are, it's a successful nation. It is a nation that has grown its democratic processes. And I think one thing that it is very prevalent in when you're studying the elections is the voter education that is there. And I want to know from your side, especially now when you have no fights right now with the IEC.
They just sent me the letter last night to still reject.
Goodness.
I can't believe that. And
on
you remember on they cited that the Heraldry Act of 1962. Now they are turning around that no, they made the
Do you think that the IEC is a political machine?
No, I mean our democracy is under attack. But fortunately enough, I think it's a great opportunity to get South Africans to really see the danger that's coming, and it is now time for us to wake up to this reality. 2021 and 2024 around the corner. We are going to register eventually. They can try every trick in the book, because now the only thing that they have is that from on the legal perspective, they know they blundered. Now can you imagine a Chapter 9 institution making such a fundamental mistake to deprive a political party to register? Now the only thing that they're using now is a subjective analysis of saying our logo looks like another party. and I can tell you, we tested this even with drunk people. I'm telling you.
In branding. I mean, I saw they were like, oh goodness, wow. What
in fact, the statement I released this morning shows, I want South Africa to see the two logos. I tell you, I tested this with drunk people in a bar.
Yeah.
And some of them would get angry with me without telling them who I was and what we do.
Sure.
You just show the two logos and says, tell me, what do you think? Do they look the same? Someone would say, no, what do you mean? And then some of them would actually get angry and says, tell me, do you think we're drunk? I mean, and then says, can't you see yourself? What are you trying to test?
Sure. But doesn't that also then question the legitimacy of the past elections? Now, when you are having such things, that you are seeing that it's a systematic approach. I mean, that the IEC, and it's a stance that they're taking to then say this party must not be registered.
It looks like they've taken that decision. My legal team is looking at options, and we even offered them during our appeal to say, okay, guys, then let's sit with you. Then we work out something because this is what you are. The decision is based on subjective analysis.
Sure.
So let's sit with you. Then our team can work with you, so that we don't have to have ups and downs.
Yes,
they are refusing this, because the thing is, if you've got two things that don't look the same, and you say, and then IEC says they look the same. So what's the change? Now, if you've got to change, tell me what must I change? So
that we can,
because the problem for us is that we don't know what to change.
Wow, that's very interesting because my biggest question is with the electoral system itself that, is there a chance that our elections could have been rigged in the past?
Well, one thing for sure is that the 2016, 2019, last year's the national elections,
yes.
Definitely there were some issues in Soweto. I went, including going to the IEC offices, because someone actually, and someone from the ANC who phoned me, says, hey, I was the mayor at the time, he says, hey, please come to Soweto at a particular ward. Hey, people are being bussed in and so forth. There's some shenanigans. So I drove over. And before going, I went to the IC offices in Dobsonville to go and raise the issue. And the IC people, the one guy who was actually brave enough to say, this is what you are saying is not an isolated case. It's really happening. But to what extent, unfortunately, when I brought it to the attention of DA, didn't want to take it seriously. So there were some shenanigans, but to what extent everyone was happy with the outcome of the elections, despite the fact that there were some shenanigans that personally I went to raise with the IEC at the offices in Soweto. And the IEC officials, the issue I raised on one voting station, they said, no, this is happening throughout Soweto. People have been taken from one voting station to the next. Remember we had the issue with the ink that
can be removed and then
you go and register somewhere else.
Okay.
But I think I need to really appeal to South Africans, and I think that's it's going to be part of the campaign in mobilizing South Africans to be volunteers, because we'll need observers. We need serious observers. I think all of us South Africans, we need to stand up and make sure that every voting station is manned properly. When you come in there, you've got the right documentation. You appear on the voters' roll, and we've got to make sure that this time we work with the IEC to test that ink to ensure that we don't have people more voting the more than once. And we've got to also, I think, as South Africans, so we need to watch Home Affairs not to start expediting giving the citizenships and South African IDs to foreign nationals, because
vote for them.
because the foreign nationals who are here illegally, they love ANC. I mean, it's so we've got to really watch to make sure that ANC within the next coming months, we must not really see the Home Affairs issuing IDs to everyone coming from Pakistan, from Nigeria, from everywhere. So we've got to really be very careful about that. So I think we've got to really be on the lookout. We need to really be vigilant as society.
Isn't that what Donald Trump is calling for when he says, let's recount, let's go litigate it in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, but he needs to provide evidence. But so far, obviously, I'm not in the United States at the moment. But I think listening to not just really one media house, try to listen generally. So far, it looks like he's unable to provide any substantive evidence to back up his claim. So I don't know if he's got. If he has, why is he not really producing the evidence? I don't think it is fair. If he's got a case, let him actually bring it
Actually, I think yesterday he just put it up onto the Supreme Court, and they already accepted in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and a couple of states as well.
Yes. I must have missed that.
But in any case, that's besides the point. The main thing is, it's we are here in South Africa, and these are the issues that we are having in South Africa. I mean, we have seen recently with the City of Tshwane, there's been a report that says that 170 million has been lost to people who are not even there, working for the city.
Well, I found that same thing in the City of Johannesburg. People who are working for Lutuli House being paid by the City of
So it's possible for people to vote who are dead. Those people can vote.
Well, I think It is up to you and I. It's up to all of us as South Africans
Sure.
to be on the lookout, be vigilant, be prepared. You don't have to really be directly in the political field to take responsibility for your country.
Sure.
That is why, for me, this whole
yeah.
patriotism, putting South Africa first, I think it's natural. Please go to America, go to England, go to Portugal. I mean, you go to Portugal with their own issues. Every second house has got a Portuguese flag. They're proud of being Portuguese. Not that they hate the English or the French. No, it's a natural that for a nation to really survive. I mean, Americans, they're proud to be Americans. The Australians, they're really proud to really be. But I don't understand how anyone would then expect us as South Africans, coming out of the apartheid regime, us as black people, we were the fourth in line. And now under a new democratic dispensation, because poor black people are the majority poor, we must still put them at the back of the line, way ahead of people who are here illegally, criminals. Because if you are in South Africa illegally, it means you're a criminal. We want to put them ahead of South Africans. I don't understand how anyone.
Logically.
So that's what I'm saying is this whole campaign about calling us the names, insulting us. It's another bell put in. I'm sure they've got. I don't know which agency they're using to deliver this narrative. But I'm the last person to buy into that narrative.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of votes from South Africans in the townships. There is a systematic, approach to the destroying and putting the final nail in the coffin of small businesses in the townships. And they're the ones who are experiencing these things. If you have Somalis entering into a township right now, and they are even hiring hitmen, our own people, to kill somebody who's going to open a spaza shop nearby. In a township that I'm from Soshanguve,
I'm from there as well.
Now there in Soshanguve, there's a certain area called Block TT where you have 5 stores that are led by Somalis. There's only one store still remaining that is still standing, that is South African. And you see that people would go to those stores because they're cheaper. They bring all these things are easier.
There's counterfeit goods,
that's a thing.
Expired goods, and
but people are tired because they want to take advantage of the local economy, and they cannot do that. And I'm saying that you have a voice that a lot of people are, empathetic towards it or sympathetic towards that voice because it's speaking to their real realities. And I think sometimes the ANC becomes so distorted in reality that they don't see what is actually happening in the townships right now. But now here's the question that I'm posing to you as my final question to you, Mr. Mashaba. Yes, people are now talking about land. They're saying we want land, they want land and whatnot. And I think the EFF has rose into prominence in 2013 because of their stance on speaking about land, which I think the EFF has failed personally. Personally, I voted for the EFF in the past. Right now, I can't vote for them because I think they're just not in touch with reality, and they're pushing too much of racism instead of pushing their same policies that they spoke about. I mean, 7 years down the line, as an organization, they haven't even opened a factory. Their own factory, but they can come in front and speak to us in rallies and whatnot and saying that the ANC cannot even produce a teaspoon, but have you manufactured? Have you done anything? And I think that's where we'll be looking at you, Mr. Mashaba, that yes, you are saying that you want to put South Africans first, but South Africans want land. What is your stance on land, and how do you see black people, the previously disadvantaged, taking advantage of the land?
Well, I think if you want anarchy, fortunate enough, we can walk to Zimbabwe. I'm sure it can take us a couple of days to walk to Zimbabwe. that country 26 years ago used to be the breadbasket of Southern Africa. They used to produce more food to supply and feed the entire Southern Africa. Today, they can't even produce maize meal. You know how easy it is to grow maize meal? I mean, I grew up in a village. You know? I mean, you just throw in some seeds and a few months later you have rain. And it's the easiest product that, you know. Today, they're starving. They can't even produce that. They've got the land. And one thing that people fail to understand, there's a provision in our constitution for land expropriation. And I cannot really I cannot understand how anyone would say we must really change this. Because if you expropriate land, you expropriate it for social good. The constitution allows it. Fortunate enough, I've had experience, and I guess I must be the only mayor in this country who've done it. I'm sure you know in the city of Johannesburg on the 1st of December 2016, during my 100 days, I made a commitment to people of Johannesburg that I'm going to expropriate these buildings taken over by criminal elements, where some of the buildings were no-go areas, with the premier living in the city. And I said to the premier, I need your help. We're going to take back these buildings. We're going to offer them to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for our people. Because I inherited a city with 300,000 housing backlog, with 200 informal settlements. Informal settlements, half of them not even having toilets. I've come across communities with no toilets. And there's still a lot of them. By the time I left, I had identified 600 properties. By the time I left in 3 years, running a multi-party government with the DA being the most difficult, because obviously black people are not part of their agenda. I said, we're going to build the houses for our people. We're going to take this building, expropriate them. By the time I left, 154 of them passed by council, given to the private sector, medium-sized businesses mainly owned by women. They went out to go and raise the money themselves. 32 billion rands worth of investment. I'd identified 600. I'd committed to people of Joburg that every year I will expropriate a minimum of 100 properties and give them to the private sector to build affordable accommodation and business areas for our people. So, who stopped me? Did you have anyone? So what I'm trying to say is that people are not just really looking for land for the sake of looking. People are looking for opportunities. And that is really what our constitution allows. And that is what I've demonstrated, that it is possible to actually do it. Because what happens with this 32 billion rands, it was going to create something like 12,000 permanent jobs. We included artisan training to make sure that as part of building, please, we need you to train our people as bricklayers, as carpenters, as electricians, and so forth. So you can imagine this project. And I'm promising people of South Africa, come 2021, we are going to contest a few municipalities already confirmed, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Johannesburg. And what we are going to do is all these properties, the land or properties hijacked by criminal syndicates, we are going to expropriate those pieces of land and build the affordable accommodation for our people, because that's what our people are looking for. Instead of the ANC government with the RDP houses that collapses within 3 years of being built, they go and put people 80 kilometers away from job opportunities. You can imagine someone from Orange Farm working in Sandton. You know how much the
time that is wasted on that.
You know, so actually ANC has taken apartheid special planning to another level. I can tell you, as Mandela is standing in his grave, HF Verwoerd is having the celebration on a daily basis with the most expensive champagne to say, my goodness, why I should have given these people a chance of perhaps Savenda would not have killed me, you know.
Sure.
It must be celebrating, because if he had given the ANC this, unlike look at Lucas Mangope, who we used to think he was crazy working with us. You come from Soshanguve. You
Yes,
should know.
you know.
You
Yes,
should know
Mabopane.
Mabopane.
Definitely.
You look at the development under Mangope. With limited budget, only reliant to a large extent on the little money from the National Party government.
Sure.
But he did not steal that money. He held the one thing that Mangope did. He held the ministers accountable.
Sure.
He will embarrass them in front of the people, those who did not work. The police worked. Everyone worked. The public service worked.
Sure.
Was it perfect? Because it's perfect in life. But you take, I mean, it's unfortunate we can, for us to say that Mangope performed better than this current government. No. But is it a lie? It's a fact.
No, it's factual. You go to Mabopane, you go to Garangua, you see those areas. You see that there's still structures that are from Mangope's time.
I mean, it is actually quite really sad to actually even use such comparisons. But the thing is, if we put our heads in the sand,
sure,
we pretend that we don't see them. Unfortunately, time will punish us.
Dr. Mashaba, ActionSA. What is ActionSA promising to people? I want you in 1 minute, Dr. Mashaba, make a pitch to young people who loved you as a mayor of Johannesburg, but now are seeing you as a leader of ActionSA, and they're saying we hear you and we understand you and we are tired of the ANC. What is your message to the voters who are going to be voting for ActionSA, or the people who haven't even thought about ActionSA or who don't know about ActionSA? What is your message to them in 1 minute, sir? That's it.
Well, we're a party that stands for non-racial South Africa. The rainbow nation that Nelson Mandela wanted to build. We are a party that stands for social justice. We cannot live in a country where we are known to be the most unequal society in the world. We're a political party that stands for the rule of law. We need independent criminal justice system. In the event anyone breaks the law, there has to really be consequences. We believe in ethical leadership. For you to really be in public office, you have to really have morals. You have to have the conscience. We stand for electoral reform, where society must be the ones to decide who becomes the president, becomes the ward councillor, becomes premier. It should not really be a question of political parties deciding on public representatives behind closed doors. We are for education revolution. We want clever blacks. We want to make sure that 25 years into our administration, that we can have black professors, black engineers, black scientists, black lawyers, accountants, and bricklayers, electricians, and so forth. And that can only happen if we remove the influence of unions from our education. Government must take the responsibility for ensuring that government is responsible for government. We must reintroduce the inspectorate, so that when you're a principal in a particular school, we must have inspectors that on a regular basis, unannounced, to ensure that the teachers do what they're paid to do, because that's the profession that they chose.
Dr. Mashaba, thank you so much for being part of Abuti Rams Live, and we're really grateful for the time that you've afforded us to have a conversation about South Africa and seeing South Africa moving forward. And all the best with ActionSA, and your logo definitely does not look like any other logo.
Thank you to hear that.
Colleagues, you have been watching Abuti Rams Live, and thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are watching this video and you haven't subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe and also like, comment, and share your thoughts, because we have a leader from ActionSA, Dr. Herman Mashaba, who has been a leader in Gauteng, particularly in the city of Johannesburg, and he has presented himself to the public, and we want to hear your thoughts on what ActionSA can do. Can they put action into some of the policies that we have in this country and move South Africa moving forward? Thank you so much. It's been great.